Hello, everyone. I'm Heidi Owen, and welcome to our Sellers Panel. We're joined today by CEOs that sold their company in 2023. Let's begin with a round of introductions.
So my name is Barry Larson, and I'm the founder of TrustDoc Systems. We were the developers of a product called OK Alone, and we specialized in looking after the safety of people who work by themselves, otherwise known as lone workers.
My name is Brian Sweat, and my company Alterity is the creators of Activate Inventory software. And we've been in business for over 20 years, creating software for small businesses to better manage their inventory with QuickBooks. And I've been running the company for the last 10 years, pretty much running the business on my own. And we've recently been through an acquisition.
Scott Kokenar, founder, CEO of Corum LLC, a boutique-size software developer in the environmental laboratory LIMS, Laboratory Information Management System space. When we sold, 24 years in, about 30 employees.
Thank you for joining us today. Let's get started with our first question. Starting with you, Scott. What was your motivation for going through the M&A process?
It was a long-term, both investment and career. Worked with a lot of really great people, developed really strong relationships with our customer base, did some really exciting work on the technology side. It was time for a new chapter, both in my life and in the product evolution. After we released Element version 7, we were able to go to market, find a strategic buyer, employed everyone, kept all the customers, and had a reasonable, healthy return for ownership. So it was a very successful process, and Corum was our partner all along the way.
Thanks, Scott. What about you, Barry?
So we had reached a natural break point in the business. We were growing very quickly. I think it was around 50-60% the last year, but the market was consolidating. And in order to compete with the big boys, we needed additional resources. M&A was one of the great options that allowed us to do that. We found a fantastic partner, both commercially and culturally from a staff point of view, and that ultimately is why we said yes to the deal.
Thanks, Barry. Brian?
There was a time when I thought I can do this on my own, I can keep growing the company, I can double revenue over so many years, but there's so much risk in doing it alone. And that was the time when I really said, maybe we should look in an acquisition and try to find a strategic deal and some opportunity where, together we could do better than just alone. And so I wasn't looking for perfection, I was just looking for progress. I just wanted to find something that could be better, and not just for me, not just financially or my way of life or my lifestyle, but also better for my team. So my employees, when you work in a small business, and we were about 30 people, there's just not as many opportunities for your employees. And what were their future careers going to be? Well, ultimately they would have to leave the business unless we joined a larger company or had new opportunities. And M&A was not my initial strategy, but when it was proposed to me, we found a really good fit.
Moving on to the next question. We'll start with Brian this time. What surprised you most about the M&A process?
When I started this process with Corum, I didn't really know what to expect. So I'm a young CEO, I'm 45 years old right now, and I didn't really know what to expect. I probably thought it was going to be easier, and I never thought I would go at it alone because I didn't know what I was doing. I knew we had to hire a lawyer. I knew I had to have a broker, somebody who knows the deal-making part of it. But I really didn't realize how much work that Corum would do on my behalf. So, in my opinion, I was able to really still kind of focus on running my business. Sure, there's a lot of work for due diligence. There's a lot of Excel work and getting financial data to the buyer, but Corum really did most of the negotiating on my behalf. And I'm a good salesman. I could sell the company, but I don't think I could sell it for the best price and get a great deal. And that's where really Corum came in. And I really do think I underestimated that. So it was a very nice surprise, and it was a really great experience.
Great. Thanks, Brian. Scott?
It sounds a little cynical, and it surprised me that everything seemed to work on time and well. When we I had anticipated having some bumps along the way, and it certainly had from previous transactions I had been involved in. But once we started the process and were working well through the established program, things moved along in a thoughtful, contiguous process. And we met all of the estimates on time and events and evaluations along the way. It was successful in a very intense 8-month period in my life, but I guess it surprised me that everything worked as well as it did.
Thank you, Scott. And Barry?
When we started the M&A process, we got involved, as I mentioned, with a buyer, and they had a very strong legal department, I suppose. So the level of detail that we went through and the kinds of questions we were getting asked was more than I've ever seen in the past. And it was actually very helpful to have, in my case, William and Martin help me through that process. Because I think in the end we had over 500 questions that were thrown at us. And that was a bit of a surprise.
Next question. What key lesson would you share with tech CEOs considering M&A? Let's go to Barry first.
Absolutely get an advisor. So they bring some reality to the situation. It can be a very emotional process. There's going to be good days, there's going to be bad days. Of course, being the seller, you want everything your way, you want more money than things probably worth. They bring some levity to that. They're like a coach, a mentor, a psychologist, all in one person, I suppose. So yeah, I would absolutely recommend getting an advisor. It also allows you to focus on the business during the initial stages. So you keep your eye on the ball, keep the growth curve going. And then when you actually have to come in, then they can pull you in to do things. So
Thanks, Barry. Brian?
So one of the key lessons that I would share with anybody that's in my shoes, that's if you're a CEO of a small company or a medium-sized business, you're bombarded by opportunities. So my inbox was full. And there were times that I thought, did Corum publish this? Did they go out and find these people? But no, you're targeted constantly by private equity groups, by individual investors, search funds, things like that. And the nice thing about working with a company like Corum is they will take on all that responsibility and they can really filter the signal from the noise. And so many of those are junk. They really are junk. It's a lot of noise. And Corum brought to me only really the best opportunities. So by vetting these companies before they're ever introduced to me, we did have a number of opportunities, but all of them were good in some ways. Now, none of them were until I found the one that was the best fit. I didn't choose the earlier ones. I did go through 3 significant opportunities, and I don't have regrets, but they would have been interesting. They were all structured differently, and the outcomes would have been different, but they were all great proposals. And so my advice is don't reach out to those people. Don't respond to those opportunities yourself. Get someone like Corum to do it for you and just take that stress off, because there are too many opportunities and you don't have the experience in working with these different buyers, and Corum does.
Fantastic. Thanks, Brian. Now to you, Scott.
In some of my other work, I do executive coaching, and I often coach my clients that managing a CEO managing a company it's much like a juggler, and there are 3 stakeholders of ownership and employees and customers. And all of those stakeholders' interests must be balanced, or you can't juggle. They all must be kept in continuous motion and supported. The M&A process, well, you're doing that while changing horses at the same time, and it's complicated. But if tech CEOs can keep in mind the best interests of all groups in a healthy market, there is always the right price for the right asset and the right transaction to move forward. So I would encourage people to look for that intersection of positive events.
Final question for today. How did selling your business improve your life? Scott, we'll start with you.
worked very hard as an operating CEO, traveled literally a million miles. Promised my wife for a long time that we would travel together. We're doing that now. And I'm answering that, fulfilling that promise I had made to her. We're spending lots of time with our grandsons. So there's a lot of personal activities that have been really great. It has also enabled me to be open time for other activities, my coaching. I started another project because as an entrepreneur, I can't really help myself. I have a number of, I also have a hobby farm. So there's a lot of activities that I have time for now that I didn't when I was working as much professionally. So there've been a lot of improvements in the time value.
Thanks, Scott. Now, Brian?
So one of the goals in selling my business, right, is to improve my life or my lifestyle. And I think I had a pretty good lifestyle before selling, but it was really the amount of stress and the responsibility that, maybe it's not as fun anymore. And I think that's the key thing, is that I really enjoy the product, I enjoy the business, I enjoy the customers and the employees. But it wasn't, I didn't see that I could make a big impact in the future. And so selling my business really has relieved a little bit of that stress. And I've actually gone back to focusing more on the fun parts of the business. So I'm still with the company. I'm still working with the new business, the new owner. And I'm actually moving back into a role that I really love, working on the product. And running a business is exciting. It's fun to learn about, structuring the best business model and managing cash flows and profits and working with accountants to get, creative. And so you go through all of these processes in running a sales team and the marketing. All of that was a great learning, very great learning experiences. But it's ultimately, I don't want to do everything. So by finding a buyer who will do some of that, and maybe not all, I'm still going to be doing some of the things, but it's a lot less stressful and it's fun. So I'm just going to stay around and do the fun parts. And if it doesn't get fun, if I lose that fun, I can leave now, and I don't have the responsibility to every single employee to be there for them and to make sure that we're growing the business, to make payroll and give them raises. That's not my responsibility anymore, and that feels great to not have that responsibility to everything and everyone.
Great. Thanks, Brian. Now to Barry.
Well, this is the first holiday I've had in 15 years, so things are looking really good at the moment. The rest of it, I don't know. I'm going to take a year off, decide what I want to do. I'm not prejudging anything, and just enjoy the ride. Actually, it's been a long way to get here. It's been great to celebrate it in this way, and we'll see what happens in the next 12 to 18 months.
Great insights. We appreciate you being on with us today to talk about your M&A experience. Corum was honored to help each of you achieve the optimal outcome for your business.